So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Lord Mayor Councillor Kieran McCarthy to say a few words of welcome.
Dear members of the Hegarty family, dear Lady Maurice Marceline, dear fellow councillors, dear producer Maurice Dineen and dear director Catherine Mahon-Buckley, and my dear friends, you're so welcome to this beautiful and historic hall. This is the third municipal hall on this particular site, and this was created in 1936, and it was a long road to create this. It was opened 16 years after the Irish War of Independence. The second hall was actually burnt down during the Irish War of Independence. I have just three very brief messages, if I may, on this particular evening at the important launch of the film, The Hegartys of the Laurels. My first message, my dear friends, is a reflection on the power of commemoration. Our journey this evening is once again our continued commitment to commemorate those who made sacrifices during the Irish War of Independence. Indeed, this evening's film is based on Jim Hegarty's book, The Hegartys of the Laurels, a story of unsung heroism, and that we continue to thank for their unsung heroism at the very outset, John Joe Hegarty, Mary Frances or Mamie Hegarty, and Joanna or Nan Hegarty. Indeed, the act of commemoration, my dear friends, can make you question, can make you wonder, can make you dream, can make you curious, can make you disturbed, can make you explore, and to make you not forget a whole series of different emotions. And our focus this evening is on many of these emotions, and I can feel such emotions in this particular historic space as well. Our commemoration does make one question the complexities of the layers of the events during the Irish War of Independence and how they're infused to the character and the sense of place of our historic city, and not just our historic city, our historic region, and beyond the region as well in our country. Our commemoration makes us dream of what if those who lost their lives had lived and the course of history was different. There are references in Jim's book, in particular to Tomás McCurtain and Terence McSweeney, both predecessors of mine who also proudly wore this particular chain. Our commemoration makes us remember the people of early 20th century Cork and the river of memories that they've left us to reflect upon. And also many historical legacies. Jim, in his work, in his book, makes great use of emerging digitised archives from the Bureau of Military History and from family archives. And in particular, there's a section in Jim's book on the Laurels as an intelligence hub, a brigade meeting house, a bomb factory, gardens and sheds containing arms for use during the Irish War of Independence, and this massive connection to the city and region's Coming Amon movement. Our commemoration makes us curious to want to find out more what kind of empowered such individuals to rise up against the British. Our ceremony makes us disturbed to think about the reality of ambushes, thinking about those who were killed, or even images of the laid out bodies executed and killed during the Irish War of Independence. My dear friends, a fortnight ago, I visited the new Memorial Park in Ballycannon in Cllr. And on one of the new interpretive panels, there's an image of a tricolour over the coffins of 6 individuals who lost their lives in Ballycannon, or even the image of a burnt-out Partick Street of the burnt-out City Hall in December 1920. And certainly our event this evening makes us not forget all these particular stories from 100 years ago, once again that we revisit this heritage that's been passed down to us in our time. So my first message that I want to say to you, my dear friends, is that emotions matter. They can help in bringing us to make sure the figures of those who lost their lives in 1920 are not just human statistics. They're very, 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 very real people. And even the actors you see on the stage, they are echoing real-life characters. It's not just a fairy tale, it's a very, very real story that's left a massive legacy and a massive heritage passed down to us, that we should never, ever, ever forget the human aspect of the War of Independence. My second brief message to you, my dear friends, is on the power of togetherness when actually coming together to furthering research. We've just come out of the Decade of Commemorations, and much work has been done by local historians such as Jim and others, work by Dan Breen in the museum, in our libraries, in our archives, and there's been many what I call A-teams of commemorations that came together and they kind of read between the lines of the old narratives a little bit more. And this coming together kind of created new cross-disciplinary lenses to understand the holistic perspective of the War of Independence. So, for example, we are fortunate in the case of the Hegartys of The Laurels through Jim's work, and that he actually dug down into, I don't know, many more layers. But when you read Jim's book, you can see that he leaves breadcrumbs for other people to follow. So, for example, like the post-war of independence, we need to do more work on kind of decoding the Irish Civil War and what happened during that. We need to do more work on what I call mid-20th century commemoration, like who were the first people to commemorate on the 10th anniversary or the 30th anniversary or the 50th anniversary, the legacies from the War of Independence. And when I say mining down, I'd like to nod to Paul Moynihan, Nuala Stewart, within corporate affairs for their help and working with us councillors in publishing books on the War of Independence. And when I say all of this, one of the things, and a very good example of we need to do more work on furthering research on the War of Independence, is that recently I had the honour as Lord Mayor to travel to Manchester, to the suburb of Tameside, to collect on a permanent loan the shaving kit of IRA volunteer Leo Murphy from their local council. So way back in 21st of June 1921, young man Leo Murphy was out in the Ballincollig area, the Waterfall area. He was on the run, and the Manchester Regiment managed to catch up with him, and they shot him going over a ditch. And one of the Manchester Regiment took his shaving kit out of his pocket, out of the dead body, put the shaving kit into their pocket, and then the Manchester Regiment was disbanded, and they went back to Tameside in Manchester, and a few weeks ago, we brought that shaving kit home. Why am I saying that? There's acres and acres of more research to be done in the UK and also across Ireland. So my second message to you is that there's much more research to do. We're just out of the decade of commemoration, and so I very much welcome this film as an extra tangent how to tell the story and also for furthering research as well. My third and my last message to you, my dear friends, is a reflection on we don't live in 1920, but we can learn from the past for our future. And my predecessor, Terence McSweeney, he wrote a book called Principles of Freedom. And he spoke about the citizen and a hope for tomorrow. And he said the following, quote, "The citizen will fight for the ideal in obscurity, little heeded, in the open, misunderstood, in humble places, still undaunted, in high places, seizing every vantage point, and never crushed, never silent, never despairing, sharing a few comrades with a hope for tomorrow. And should these few sink in the struggle, the greatness of the ideal is proven in the last hour," end quote. My dear friends, here we are, over 100 years after the War of Independence, in a time where a hope for tomorrow needs to be made again. For ourselves and for future generations across elements such as housing, hospitals, social inclusion, equality, community life, future-proofing employment. We have a chance in our time to finish what the women and men did and their compatriots started way back in time, and we owe it to ourselves to finish what they started. And that's my third message to you. We owe it to them to finish what they started. So my dear friends, let me conclude. Yes, we celebrate this new film on the Hegartys of the Laurels, but it's also a reflection, a cauldron of different kind of simmering ideas. It's important to reflect on the human emotion, that what we're dealing with are real human beings, and as well as that, there's more research to be done, and as well as that, we need in our time to kind of move forward as well, to make sure that we reflect and that we move forward based on the legacies of the past, and that we evolve as well with new ideas. But it's important that we continue to carry forward with hope, with confidence, with passion, with wit, with leadership, and all that bound to the cities and countries' hopes and dreams, which do burn brightly for the future. But let me leave you with this question, dear friends. What is your role in the future of Ireland and in our beautiful city and county of Cork? Gur míle mágah.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce musicians, the pipers from the Tralee Pipes and Drums, the Ballyfihan Pipe Band, the Ballingeary Pipe Band, the Mill Street Pipe Band, and the Thomas Davis Pipe Band from Mallow. They will be performing The Minstrel Boy and Dawning of the Day. The musicians will be performing and remembering in remembrance of those who founded the Cork Volunteer Pipe Band back in 1914. A short video will be playing to accompany, showing that the Cork Volunteer Pipe Band and how the tradition started by Tomás McCurtain lives on in 2024. Very rousing. It now gives me absolute great pleasure to welcome the Hurley family, who are descendants of Tim Hurley or Taig O'Murthel. They will be performing a song on Fosog Spare, the Lark in the Clear Air. The song will be played on Taig O'Murthel's fiddle by his granddaughter, Maureen O'Donovan, accompanied on fiddle by her sister Nessa, and on corsetina by her sister Cleena. Vocals provided by Bevine Hurley, granddaughter of Taig, and harp accompanied by Muireann Griffin, great-granddaughter. The connection between John Joe Hegarty and Taig O'Murthel was rediscovered when Maureen read the Hegartys and the Laurels. Since then, the family have visited the Laurels and played some beautiful pieces there on Taig's fiddle, as he was undoubtedly a visitor to the house as a member of H Company. I think we can all agree that was brilliant, excellent. And it's lovely to see history like that brought to dramatised in such a way, it almost gives it a bit more potency that you see underneath, behind the stories and the tales we've learned for so long. They're actually human beings, ordinary people stuck in extraordinary times. There are a few more sections left in this evening before we can send you out into the streets of Cork. It gives me great pleasure to be able to welcome on stage the author of the book on which the Hegartys and the Laurels, on which this film we've just watched was made, and a son of John Joe Hegarty, Jim Hegarty.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the evening so far. I won't detain you too long, but there are a few points that I'd just like to raise with you or to share with you. First of all, I want to thank you all for your presence here this evening. Sincere thanks to the City Council for hosting this evening's event, and it's part of the Lifelong Learning Festival. And what a pleasure it is for me and the Hegarty family to be here in our historic City Hall and to be given the privilege to attend the screening of our family story, The Hegartys of the Laurels. So on behalf of the Hegartys, Fords and Fennell families, thank you so much. Following on from the book launch here in 2022, it was launched by Lord Mayor Cllr in the City Library, and we were thrilled that the library did that for us, and more thrilled when they said they would stock the book. So I would like to thank Angela Hannon, Eileen Cassidy and David O'Brien for all their efforts 2 years ago. However, since then we've been taken on an unplanned journey with the help and encouragement of the City Council and on a cross-party basis by the councillors and by the very committed community volunteers who continue to do tremendous work around the city. I'm speaking particularly in our case of the Cllr Historical Association, Cllr Tidy Towns, Ballyfihan Commemorative 1916-2016, who together arranged for a garden of remembrance and reflection to be dedicated to the Hegarty sisters in April last year. And this was again opened by the Lord Mayor at the time, Deirdre Ford. This could not have been possible without the support of the Council's Parks Department, led by Stephen Scully. So I want to thank these particularly for all of that. I would like to also take the opportunity to mention Cllr Community Gardens and their endeavours to reinstate market gardening into the Cllr/Ballyfihan area. Following that, then we had the song written by John Murphy, who you heard there earlier on, and the words are in the programme. And then this year, again, out of the blue, the City Library included the sisters in their fantastic 2024 calendar. The calendar is honouring Cork brave women and their role in the War of Independence, and without the common, I believe that there would be, and their various activities, we may have a different outcome to the War of Independence. The women's role, I believe, is not, it should be more to the forefront than I believe it is, but maybe this film today will help to kind of promote that more. Over the last couple of months there, I've spoken to a number of schools, and I just can't believe at the young age that their appetite, students' appetite for history, and particularly Cork history here in town. And then some weeks ago, in fact, we had the pleasure of attending Cllr Maurice Deer Park as their drama students performed their adaptation of the story under the guidance of their teacher, Niamh Fanning. This turned out to be a very emotional evening, like this evening for the Hegarty, Fords and Fennell family. And I know an awful lot of the students are here tonight. So thank you again, guys, for what you've done. Tonight's event would not happen without the passion and commitment of one man particularly, and that's Maurice Dineen of Cllr in Ballyfihan. Maurice had already produced 2 films, My Unsung Hero, about Joe Murphy, and The Man in the Uniform, which was a balancing film about an RIC sergeant. And then he became aware of our story, and he called me to see could he do the Hegartys of The Laurels. Maurice's passion and attention to detail has to be seen to be believed. In fact, between then and now, and this I know won't go any further, he's done my head in for the last 2 years on this. The sad part is I don't think he's finished yet. He already had his team, of course, of Elizabeth Scanlon, who the scriptwriter, Catherine Mann Buckley, I know again is here this evening, the art, Adam Duggan, who provided all the uniforms, but is leading the pipe bands here as well, and Chris Cullen of Epic Productions. When the filming was going on at the Laurels, the Lord Mayor and Paul Moynihan visited the site when we were there, and that actually brought a huge amount of pleasure to all the actors and the crew. And I'd say, judging by what we saw here for the young actors and actresses, I'd say there's possibly more Oscars on the way to Cork in the coming years. Well, I hope they are. But again, thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedule. We'd also like to thank the current owners of the Laurels, the O'Sullivan family, for allowing Maurice access to that for weeks on end without any pressure to finish the work. Also on Spike Island, and to the Lough Church for allowing the use of their premises for both the wedding and the funeral scenes. To Frank Kelly of Lettertech, who published the book for me, and for producing this beautiful program we have here this evening. If you haven't got a copy, I know there's some on the way out if you wish. To my nephew John Joe Hegarty and to my niece Lisa O'Sullivan, who've done huge supporting work behind the scenes, not only for this evening's event, but for creating what we've now created, or they've created, is a website, the hegartycollection.ie, and that's now going to be updated, not only by our own story, but also families, as you can see, the Hurley family and the Harrington families that were mentioned there earlier on. There's more and more information, and as Lord Mayor mentioned earlier on, the research that's been done. I have to commend again the council, the Cork Council, that since 1920 they've always supported commemorating our dead patriots. First, the establishment of the Republican plot in Dasheen at the murder of our Lord Mayor Thomas McCurtain, and in the naming of the roads in Ballyfihan and Toker as they were being developed. Again, they were being called after Cork men. Maybe it's time, I don't suggest though, that women should now be also honoured in the same light for the role that they have played in this particular time. I mentioned Maurice's attention to detail and his ongoing search for Cork history stories, and abiding by Abraham Lincoln once said, "History is not history unless it is the truth." I believe it is also important that when history is written, taught and spoken, it should be done in an unbiased way, and I hope we have abided by that, not only in the book but also in the film that you saw here this evening. And I'm sure there's more to come. So everything that was mentioned in that particular film, and I know they're going to be more added from time to time to the film, it will come more to the fore. Since the book launch, I've received many letters providing information, research, etc. And one that I was delighted to receive was a critique of his story from Teddy Delaney, when he wrote, and he said, he saw no triumphalism, no glorification, but a sense of gratitude for those courageous men and women who dedicated their lives to the cause of Irish freedom. And I think that's hopefully came across this evening in that as well. On a personal level, one of the privileges of publishing was meeting and talking to people who have similar interests, our family history. I live in a suburb of Cork called Clonskee in Dublin, and since the book was published, other neighbouring families have been in contact, and they've helped me to join up the dots of the history and the research that has gone into it. And again, we will include these again, I think, with the final, when the film is finally finished. Met dependents such as Jeremiah Keating of G Company, his daughter from Blonhead, believe it or not, again I know she's here this evening, is actually my next door neighbour in Dublin. Also, Con and Kathleen and John Harrington. I discovered that Con was the Lord Mayor's PA and bodyguard, and wrote his account of McSweeney's arrest and his own arrest in his book, Rebels Cork's Fighting Story. Con went on to be town clerk and secretary to the bars when they beat Blackrock in the county, which is also good news. The Harrington discovery explained to me, though, why the Laurels became an intelligence hub, as John Joe had one of his men in the centre of the Cork Brigade. I also discovered that Con's granddaughter lives a few houses away from me in Dublin. Nice to know that the Harrington family is here represented this evening by, I know, John's son is here, came up from Tralee. And mention of the bars, I said, was Con Enan's nephew. I met Con's nephew in fact, Con Enan gave me a letter of introduction to his nephew Con when I went to Dublin in the 70s. And then we had the likes of James Leahy, who was Tipperary, but his grandson, Pat, lives about 100 yards away from me. He'd be here this evening, only that he's covering the Ardèche in Dublin. He's the political correspondent, in fact, of the Irish Times. And also his brother, Michael Leahy, who lived here in Cork, and was the manager of the Winthrop Hotel when Cork was burned that time in 1920. And Michael was also an intelligence officer. Unfortunately, he ended up playing with Blackrock, as he was one of the great Leahy family. But his son, Michael, saw the light and joined the bars. Lord Mayor Pa McGrath, as grandnephew, also lives nearby. And one of the few photographs we had was of John Joe leading the Cllr party of Pa's funeral in 1956. I found that there was a very interesting photograph in the archives of the Cork Examiner, and it's coming up the South Mall, where the cortege is there, but in front of it is about 20 to 25 priests leading the procession. And yet, 30 years prior to that, all of these men were being excommunicated. So it's probably just the times that we're in it. I played a game of golf with Pa's grandnephew, but there was also a man there called Brian Williams. And when Brian asked me, we got into history, Cork history type of thing, and Brian asked me, did I ever know of a guy called Sean Hegarty and Martin Corry? And I went off on one and told him about Martin Corry. He was the chief executioner. He was a relation of John Joe's, my father, but Sean Hegarty wasn't a blood relation. But he used the Laurels as a base when he became commanding officer after McSweeney's death. And then when we were finished, he produced a piece of paper, and on it was his granduncle, in fact, was a man called Michael Williams, who was traced to Laois back in the day and found guilty of murdering McCurtain. And yet Pa was part of the jury in the coroner's court. So it reminded me then of Maurice's other film of the RIC man, that we do need to get all the stories out, regardless of what side you took or what your views were, and hopefully that will continue. And then here in Cork, the descendants of Joe Murphy, Michael O'Leary, Tim Hurley, and also the family of Sean and Maud Mitchell. In fact, Maud's great-grandson would have helped someone earlier on in the day ushering in here, because that connection is coming in, even though we never knew one another up to quite recently. I also want to mention, though, the last family owners of the Laurels, the Guns. Coincidentally, they're descendants of Rita Minturn and her husband James O'Byrne. Rita's uniform is on display in the museum, and Jamie Byrne, as he was known as, was the last official burial in the Republican plot in 2016. One of the nice things, though, that we confirmed was that Mary O'Leary, Joe Murphy's fiancée, granddaughter, Mary Owens, married, in fact, the grandson of Terence McSweeney. Mary is the daughter of a former Cork councillor here, Dennis Owens, and both men, as you know, died on hunger strike on the same day. I mentioned Teddy Delaney earlier, and he's also a grandson of Mary O'Leary, and he's the author of a recent republished book, Cork book, Where We Sported and Played. when I was speaking to his brother John only yesterday, we decided that Teddy was always in the A class, and John, his brother, said, Jimmy, we were in the B class, and the only reason we were in the B class is that they didn't have a C class in Farna. Our former president, Mary McAleese, once said, we are a vibrant first world country, but we have a third world memory. And therefore, I would encourage everyone here, if you have the interest to be here this evening, to change that perception by researching and writing down what you know about your family in that. Be proud of keeping our Irish history and your family's history and stories alive. Students and the students that I met around Cork in the schools, they have a huge appetite for this. And we would be delighted to hear from you, your story, if you wish to share it with us. And you can contact us now by the website hegartycollection.ie. So finally, I would ask you, and I know it was mentioned earlier on, the Mary Mount collection, you got in free, you might be charged on the way out, guys. So it's a great support that we want to give. And it's in memory of our sister Betty, who passed away, and Bridget O'Reilly, Orla Dineen's mother. And I'm sure other families in Cork have been thankful for the care and attention that Mary Mount has provided. So again, thank you for your attendance. And now I'll hand over to our man of the hour, Maurice Hegarty Dineen. Okay, thank you.
Hi everyone. I promise I won't keep you as long as Jim kept me. I was up till 5 o'clock last night trying to write a speech, and because of my dyslexia, there's no point, so I'm going to try it out of my head. So Last night, I was out for a few drinks with my brother-in-law, Eamon, and his wife, Suzanne, who are up there. And they said to me, speak from your heart. And why I started this and why I got into doing films and stuff like that. I have no qualifications in filmmaking, and I have no qualifications in anything like this. So it's just I take... if someone asks me to do something, I'll have a go of it, regardless of what it is. So how it started in October 2015, a good friend of mine, Kieran O'Connell, started the Ballyvihan 2016 commemoration committee. Try that being dyslexic, try and say that. So they started that and I joined up on it, and from Kieran and the group that were there at the time, mentioning the likes of Joe Murphy, and all the streets around Ballyvihan are all called after the 7 signatories of the 1916 Rising. So I was at home one day. I was 14 years minding my kids, so I was at home one day cleaning the kitchen. I wasn't. And I got a phone call from now a very good friend of mine, Shirley Cllr, who is Joe Murphy's grandniece, and she said, I'm doing a documentary about Joe Murphy, and I got your number, would you help me out? I'm sorry to God she ever rang me. I really am, like, in fairness. We're about 10 years later, we're still doing stuff. So we did a small film. Well, the COVID came in then, the lockdown and all that, so we couldn't actually do anything. All the restrictions came in. We done things that was really illegal. We shouldn't have been. We done a lot of recording stuff, and we done things that we shouldn't have done. But we did it to get it over the line because we had to have it ready for the 20th of October 2020. So we showed it on YouTube. It was actually sad because I watched at home on my own. Well, I was with my family. I wasn't that alone. But I didn't get to share it with Shirley because she was in Ballincollig, I was in Ballyvihan, and we couldn't get to see each other because of the 5-mile restrictions at the time. But yeah, it was actually sad, like. And then we done The Man in the Uniform, which was the same thing, was put up on YouTube. We didn't get a chance. No, I didn't know Sergeant James O'Donoghue's family, so that was okay anyway, so I didn't mind watching that one on my own. But this one is actually, I'm so proud, in fairness, to have all of you inside here to show 2 years of hard work, and I can say blood, tears and sweat went into what you just saw there a few minutes ago, and all the videos that you saw throughout the thing. So that's what I don't go around looking for these stories, they seem to come and look for me. So you can actually stay away from me now with all your stories. I'm actually taking a break because it's not fair. Like the last 2 years, which was really, really enjoyable, so all the things happened for coincidences and all that, what you say. Like I ended up getting the key to the Laurels. I passed that Laurels house so many times, and I never dawned what was going on behind the doors or what happened behind the doors of it. And when I contacted Jim Hegarty, he said, that's the Laurels, it's his house, his family home. Jim was born there, Jack was born there, Pauline was born there, Eileen was, and Betty and the whole family. So for me to get the key, when I went in there, it was an absolute wreck because people hadn't lived there for about 5 or 6 years. And I'm a carpenter by trade, so I looked around and I got a vision that we'll do it up and we'll see what we can make of it. And he saw what I did. I did all the carpentry work and I decorated it, and we brought schools in to do talks. I'll tell you one story about the family that played there ago, the Hurley family. Mirren Nidunavarn used to teach for me in Club Cllr Ballybehan many, many years ago, and she got married and moved away. Stupid thing to do. But she got married and she moved away. But a couple of months, about a year ago, she texted me and she said, Maurice, I'm reading this book called The Hegartys of The Laurels, and I spotted your name in it, and my grandfather's name was in it as well. So she said, could we, and I told her we were just about 2 or 3 days away from starting to film in the Laurels, and she said, can I come to see the house? And I said, no problem whatsoever. She said, I might bring a few family members with me. So I said, grand, that's perfect. So about the night before she was coming, I was saying, how many people is she going to be bringing with her? Because it's only a small house. So to be able to talk comfortably inside her, you'd want small crowds. So I said, Mirren, how many people are you bringing? 22. So they all came in, and it's been like that. It's like there's a lot of stuff in the film that we didn't show you. Like John Ford and Mamie were living in Cove, and they weren't married at this time, but during the First World War, when the Americans were bringing their dead bodies back to America, they'd stop off in Queenstown and Cove, and to get their bodies embalmed and stuff. Now, a lot of people don't know that when soldiers die, they're buried with their guns. So John Ford used to open up the coffin, take the gun out, and bring it back to the Laurels. And they had a free rein to get in and out of Cove because no one questioned them. They were working, they had their stuff. So, like even you mentioned the Sarsfields, everyone knows where Sarsfields Road roundabout is. Well, the Sarsfields were Protestants, but he was Captain Sarsfield, and he allowed Nan and Mamie and John Joe and all the other IRA people to hide guns and stuff on their land and things like that. And once or twice a month they had a little carriage in the train, and they used to bring Nan with him up to meet James Leahy and Dan Breen, where she used to bring information up and bring information back down here. And the information was always come back to the City Hall, because Con Harrington, that you heard lots of times tonight, he was a bodyguard to Terence McSweeney and Tomas McCurtain. And when I heard that, I said, he wasn't very good, was he? He was in here on the hub, so he was able to distribute the information that Nan and all the likes of the women, like if the women didn't do what they did, and I salute the women in fairness, like from all the research and all the research is in the military archives. If you look in your computers and look up names, look up your family names. Like there might be a rumour in your family that such and such was involved in this thing, the big dark secret. Look up the military archives and look in their names, and all that information is there for you to see. And you should write it down, because we mightn't be interested, but there might be one of our kids might be interested, and we'll carry on that story. These stories are very, very important to be put out there and to be remembered. Nan and Mamie were just unreal. Like I can only say that now because I've done so much work. Like as I said, 2 years of research, and that's what we come up with. So I do have a little few thank yous that I am going to have to do, and then I'm going to do it first. How often do you see a coffin on the stage in the City Hall? Watch now. nobody in it. It's empty, but don't tell anyone. Right, so so this next scene, my daughter Grace is up there. I actually have to apologise to my 4 kids, Olivia, Aaron, Ryan and Grace, because I kind of neglected them for the last 2 years with doing this project. But Daddy will be home tomorrow, I promise, and I'll spend a few hours with you. I listened to this piece of music. I have to introduce the 2 musicians here. Cllr Fennell on the far side there is from Waterford, and she's playing the uilleann pipes. And Eilish Needham is from Sligo, and she's playing the harp. And they're All-Ireland champions at whatever instruments they play. I just said it, so you know. So there's a few people I do have to thank, and I have written this down because I can get through this part of it. Like, there's so many people that were involved in this. When you see the credits, and I had to deal with every one of them. And it's when I saw it myself in the programme, I was going, why? What's the story here? So first of all, I'd like to thank Cork City Council, because without them, I can't do all the projects that I do. They're very supportive of all community groups across Cork. They are really, really good. And if you have an idea, bring it to the Cork City Council, and the chance that I will help you. I'd like to thank Mr. Paul Moynihan, who is actually really, really good. He's always there to support the stuff that I call them the dreams that I come up with, but he supports it. Nuala Stewart and Barry Neville, who for the last about 4 or 5 weeks have helped us put this night together, and have been very, very supportive. Catcha Mahan Buckley, my director, she's been very, very good. She's done so much work over the last couple of weeks. Like, they were editing this film. I haven't seen this film, only yesterday, 6 o'clock, I saw this film for the first time. And I was like, oh. But yeah, thank you, Catherine, very much. I have to thank Catherine's husband, Ted, because Ted does an awful lot of work behind the scenes that no one sees. He's taxi driving everyone around the place. So Ted, thank you. Caroline Murphy from CADA, I'd like to massive thank you to you, because I know the amount of work that you do behind the scenes in CADA and keeping it all running together. My writer, her name is Elizabeth Scanlon. When I did my unsung hero, when Shirley Kelleher contacted me, being dyslexic, I couldn't string a sentence together. And I remember Catherine ringing me and said, you have to do a dialogue. I asked my wife, what's a dialogue? So that wasn't going to happen. So I knew Elizabeth Scanlon was in Cllr for a good few years, and her dad used to tell me that she was into writing. So when I got to the stage where I needed a writer, I contacted Elizabeth. Elizabeth was in my son's class in school. She was 17 when she wrote My Unsung Hero, and it's up on YouTube. She was 19 when she wrote The Man in the Uniform, and she was 21 just last October when she wrote what you just saw. So every word that you saw on the screen was... I'd like to thank Epic Productions, Chris Cullen especially, for all his camera work and his editing. Premier Movie Props, all the uniforms that you saw, well, not the male uniforms, the women uniforms, and all the furniture that was put in the Laurels, they were from Eileen and Brendan Tobin. Act 1 Military Service, you see Adam, he'll be playing the Arana Bean there in a minute. He'll be like my rock when I do all these projects. He supplies all the guns, uniforms, and he's just, as I say, he's like a rock. He's always there. He was here all day today with me, trying to keep me calm. All the actors and the actresses in the film, he were just amazing. He put so much work, and there was nothing too hard for you to do. John Hegarty and Lisa O'Sullivan. Lisa's over there. She hides behind the scenes, so you won't see her. But about 6 months ago, Jim asked me Lisa is Jim's niece, and she's done all these videos. She done that at 1 o'clock today, just that. She said, I just put that together today. But she's done all the videos for me. They're all in my head. I explain what I was looking for, and then she'd send it back to me. I'd like to thank 96 FM. PJ Coogan is here tonight, and thanks for all the support to having me on a few weeks ago to talk. I'd like to thank Elmarie Maw and Conor Talon from the Arts House. In a couple of weeks, Jim, myself and Catherine are going into the studio to do an interview on a Sunday morning. Jim is going to speak about his book, and Catherine and myself are going to listen to Jim speaking about his book. So I'd like to thank Niamh Fanning and the drama group from Cllr, Jim and Reach. A lot of the kids are actually here from the drama group tonight. I saw them coming in earlier. So and it was a very proud moment. My son, I don't know, the reason I gave up work, he was diagnosed with autism when he was 3 or 4. And you know, that struggle, that's why I gave up work, to watch him and things like that. And to see him on the stage, he actually played John Joe Hegarty in the play. And to see him, it was just like, it's heart-wrenching to be fair, to be able to do it. So thanks, Ryan. And thanks to all the actors on the night. I'm nearly finished. I have 3 more. I'd like to thank John Murphy, the singer of the song that was in the credits. You think that he was after hearing this or seeing the film before he wrote the song. When he sent the song to me, it was just, I said, this is what we're doing, so that's why we put it into the credits. So John wrote another song about the boy from Pouladuff, about Joe Murphy, that was used in the film we used, or done back in 2020. So John, thanks a million, and keep your writing up. You're actually really, really good. Thank you. I'd like to thank my wife, Orla, for all the stuff that she does behind the scenes for me. She's entertaining guests today, and then she's running out there giving out tickets afterwards, and she's always there to support them. I don't know why she does it, but she does support me. So, and my last thank you, I think, if I've forgotten anyone, scream. Oh, hang on. Councillor Shane O'Callaghan, Councillor Mick Finn, Councillor Mick Nugent, and all the other councillors that are here tonight. I'm sorry if I forget any of you, but G mainly, thanks so much for all the support that G gave me over the last few years. And lastly, Jim Hegarty. All right, so you said that, I wrecked your head for the last 2 years. Right, we started with a script, right, a blank page, right, and I applied to the City Council for funding. Just small about, because like Nan, Mamie and John Joe, 3 actors, maybe the mum and dad, 5 actors, maybe 7 or 8 actors tops. We'd make a nice film out of that. So Jim says then, we had 25 actors in that thing. Because Jim said, what about Con Neenan? What about all these James Leahy and Dan Breen and all that? So we had to put them in. So that brought the price range up. So I had to apply again for funding to the City Council, and thank God they gave it to us. And I'd like to thank them sincerely for everything that they do to support all the stuff that I do. So, right, on the programme, I'm up here to introduce this thing, so I suppose I better do it. This piece of music is called Slieve Them On, and in the background you're going to have, what we tried to do, what I said to Lisa a few months ago, is can we get all the pictures of the people who died during 1920 and 1923 in the War of Independence and the Civil War, and can we compile it and have music? And the coffin is here to represent all the people who died from 1920 to 1923. So eventually I can get this thing completely out of my head and think about other stories and stuff. So that's why, and the coffin is here. And the bagpipers are going to come up and they're going to carry the coffin off the stage as if you're being at a funeral while we play the haunting music. So lads, if I forgot anyone, I'm sorry. I'm not used to public speaking. So thanks so much for everyone for coming and making this such a special night. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And one last thing, but just before we finish, I'd like to invite Piper Adam Duggan on stage to perform Our Own Naveen. Before he does so, I'd like to wish you all a very safe journey home, and thank you very much for being here, and I hope you got as much from it as I did. My own personal congratulations to all involved, and hopefully it'll be the start of more research as we learn more and more about such a significant period in Cork's history. Thanks very much.